The 100 Deaths by Teresa Henderson.
Self-preservation is not selfish. Sometimes the most courageous act of love is choosing to save yourself, even when it means letting go of the person you love most. Prologue. The 100th death felt different. Martha stood barefoot in the sacred grove, the ceremonial white dress clinging to her trembling frame as the full moon crested above the ancient trees. Around her, the pack formed their familiar circle, faces blank with the numbness of routine. They had watched her die 99 times before. Tonight was just another ritual, just another sacrifice. But Martha knew better. She could feel it in the way her soul flickered like a candle in wind, in the hollowness spreading through her chest where her heart should be racing. Death had become so familiar that her body barely registered fear anymore. Only exhaustion. Only the crushing weight of 8 years spent learning how to die. Across the circle, Caspian stood motionless at the edge of the gathering, his face carved from stone, his alpha gold eyes fixed on her with an intensity that once would have made her feel treasured. Now it only made her feel like a sacrifice, dressed up as devotion. The moon's light touched her skin, and the curse stirred to life. Martha's breath hitched as the first wave of agony rolled through her body. Black veins spread across her arms like cracks spidering through porcelain, dark and inevitable. Her fingers curled into fists as her chest seized, ribs compressing around lungs that suddenly forgot how to breathe. This was always the worst part. The moment between living and dying, when her body fought against the inevitable, even though her mind had long since surrendered. Blood, warm and copper-tasting, filled her mouth. She felt it trickle from her nose, felt the wet heat sliding from her ears. Her vision blurred, the faces around her melting into shadows and moonlight. Through the haze of approaching death, Martha found Caspian's eyes across the circle. He hadn't moved. He never did. He just stood there, watching her die, his hands trembling at his sides in the only admission of emotion he allowed himself anymore. Martha's lips moved, forming words that came out as barely a whisper. "Will you miss me this time?" She didn't wait for an answer. Her eyes rolled back, showing only white, and her legs gave out beneath her. The ground rushed up to meet her, but Martha was already gone before her body hit the earth. Dead. For the 100th time. Caspian felt the exact moment her heart stopped beating. The mate bond that connected them, that golden thread woven through his soul, went suddenly, violently taut. Agony exploded through his chest like claws raking through flesh, shredding him from the inside out. He gasped, his carefully maintained composure cracking as he doubled over, one hand pressed against his sternum where the pain burned hottest. This never got easier. It was supposed to. 8 years of this, 99 deaths, and each one still felt like dying himself. The curse let him feel it all. Every gasping breath she couldn't take. Every moment her heart lay still in her chest. Every second of her absence. The pack had told him in the early years that he would grow numb to it, that loving someone meant accepting their sacrifice, that this was the price of power, of the alpha crown, of the ancient magic that made him strong. They were wrong. Or perhaps they had simply never loved the way he loved Martha. "Move back! Give me room!" Maris, the pack healer, pushed through the circle, dropping to her knees beside Martha's crumpled form. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, pulling vials and herbs from the pouches at her belt, drawing ritual circles in the earth with quick, desperate strokes. Caspian forced himself to move forward, his legs weak beneath him. He fell to his knees beside Martha's body, reaching for her hand. Her skin was already cold, her fingers limp in his grasp. "Bring her back," he said, his voice raw and broken in a way he never allowed it to be. Not in front of the pack. Not when he needed to be strong. But Martha was dead, and nothing else mattered. Maris lit candles around Martha's body, her lips moving in the ancient words of resurrection. She cut her own palm, letting blood drip onto Martha's pale lips. The ritual had become second nature over the years, a dance Maris knew by heart. But tonight, something was wrong. The magic that usually sparked to life immediately, that golden glow of returning consciousness, remained stubbornly absent. Martha's chest didn't rise, her fingers didn't twitch. The blood on her lips sat there, unabsorbed, like an offering refused. "She's not responding," Maris breathed, panic creeping into her voice. She pressed her bloodied hand to Martha's chest, pouring more power into the spell. "Her soul. It's not." "What?" Caspian's grip on Martha's hand tightened until his knuckles went white. "What's wrong?" Maris looked up at him, and in her eyes, Caspian saw something that terrified him more than any enemy, any threat, any challenge to his rule. Fear. It's like she's choosing not to come back. 100 deaths. I'm honestly reeling. Martha is floating in that cold darkness, and for the first time in 8 years, the healer's magic is failing, because Martha is finally choosing to stay dead. I can't believe Caspian has stood by and watched her break piece by piece just to keep his alpha crown. It is devastating. How much can one soul take before it fractures beyond repair? If you are rooting for Martha to finally snap that golden thread and choose herself over this cycle of blood and sacrifice, smash that like button right now. Let's find out together if she stays in the shadows or returns to face the man who turned her love into a death sentence. Trust me, you are not ready for how this ends.
Chapter 1. In the space between life and death, Martha floated. There was no pain here, no exhaustion, no weight of expectation or duty or love that had somehow transformed into chains. Just darkness, soft and welcoming, like being cradled in gentle hands. She wasn't alone. Around her in the void, 99 versions of herself materialized. 99 ghosts, each one a piece of her soul left behind with every death. Some looked young, their faces still holding hope. Others were hollow-eyed and broken, their forms translucent with despair. These were her death echoes, the fragments of herself that never quite made it back. "Stay here," whispered the ghost of her 22nd death, the one where she had drowned in her own blood, choking and terrified. "It's peaceful. No more pain. He doesn't need you," said the 47th death, bitter and angry. That had been the night she realized Caspian had stopped searching for a cure, had accepted her deaths as inevitable. "He needs you to die. There's a difference." Martha wanted to argue, wanted to defend him, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, in the parts of herself she tried not to acknowledge, she wondered if they were right. A golden thread appeared in the darkness, shimmering with warmth and life. The mate bond. It stretched out into infinity, connecting her to Caspian, pulling her back toward the world of the living. She could feel him on the other end of that thread, feel his desperation, his agony, his love. It wrapped around her like a lifeline, trying to drag her back to a body that had died too many times, back to a life that was really just a countdown to the next death. Martha reached out, her ghostly fingers hovering over the thread. She could cut it. Right here, right now, she could sever the bond, let go, finally rest. The curse would have no hold on a soul that chose to stay dead. Caspian would be free to find another mate, one who wouldn't have to die for him, and she would be free from the endless cycle of death and resurrection. It would be so easy. "But he needs me," Martha whispered into the darkness. The ghost of her 99th death, the most recent one, stepped forward. This version of herself looked the most solid, the most real. She had Martha's face, Martha's voice, but her eyes held a wisdom born of too much suffering. "He needs you to die," she said softly, not unkindly. "There's a difference between being needed and being loved, between being treasured and being used." "He loves me," Martha insisted, but the words felt hollow even to her own ears. Does he? Or does he love the idea of you, the mate who sacrifices everything, who asks for nothing, who dies over and over so he can keep his crown and his power? The ghost tilted her head. When was the last time he chose you over being alpha? Martha's fingers trembled over the golden thread. Tears she couldn't actually shed in this formless space burned behind her eyes. I don't know, she admitted. I don't know anymore. The 99 deaths surrounded her, a chorus of her own voice, her own pain, her own slow dissolution. Stay, they whispered. Let go. Choose yourself. Choose peace. The golden thread pulsed with Caspian's desperation, his love, his need. But Martha found herself wondering, after 100 deaths, if she even knew the difference between love and obligation anymore. If coming back one more time would mean coming back as herself, or as something hollow wearing her face. The thread felt heavy in her hand, insubstantial, but weighted with 8 years of dying, of suffering, of loving someone who asked everything of her and gave nothing up himself. Martha's grip tightened. She could feel the bond beginning to fray under her touch, the golden light dimming. She could end this, right now. One choice, and it would all be over. But even as the thought formed, even as her fingers began to pull at the thread, a small part of her, the part that remembered what it felt like to be 19 and hopeful, whispered a different truth.
She wasn't ready. Not yet. With a sob that echoed through the void, Martha grabbed the golden thread with both hands and pulled. In the sacred grove, Caspian felt the moment she chose to return. The mate bond, which had been growing cold and distant, suddenly flared to life. Martha gasped, her back arching off the ground as life rushed back into her body like water into a drowning woman's lungs. She coughed, violent and wet, blood spraying from her lips. Her eyes flew open, brown and human and terrified, darting around wildly as if she didn't recognize where she was. Caspian's breath left him in a rush of relief so intense it felt like a physical blow. He reached for her, trying to pull her into his arms, but Martha flinched away from him. "Don't!" she gasped, her voice hoarse and broken. "Don't touch me." The words hit him harder than any physical strike could have. He froze, hand extended, watching as Martha struggled to sit up on her own. Maris tried to help her, but Martha pushed her away too, her movements jerky and uncoordinated, like a newborn learning to use limbs for the first time. Around them, the pack began to disperse. The show was over. Martha had come back, just like she always did. They returned to their homes, their lives, unburdened by the weight of what they had just witnessed. But Maris remained, kneeling beside Martha, her face tight with worry. "That was too close," she said quietly, her words meant for Caspian alone. "Her soul is fracturing. I felt it trying to slip away. I don't know if I can bring her back next time. Next time. 28 days from now, when the full moon rose again. Death number 101. There won't be a next time," Caspian said, forcing steel into his voice, even though everything inside him felt like it was crumbling. "I'll find a way to break this." Maris looked at him with something that might have been pity. "You've been saying that for 8 years. The truth of those words settled over him like a shroud. 8 years of searching, of consulting every elder, every witch, every ancient text he could find. 8 years of promises he couldn't keep, watching the woman he loved die over and over while he remained powerless to stop it. Martha finally managed to stand, though she swayed on her feet. Her dress was soaked with blood, her skin pale as moonlight. When she looked at Caspian, her eyes were distant, hollow, like she was looking at a stranger. "Take me home," she said flatly. Not a request, a command. Caspian moved forward carefully, afraid she would push him away again. But this time Martha allowed him to slip an arm around her waist, to take her weight as her legs threatened to give out. She felt fragile in his arms, breakable in a way that had nothing to do with physical strength. As he helped her out of the sacred grove, Caspian couldn't shake the feeling that he was carrying a ghost, that the woman he loved had stayed behind in that space between life and death, and what had come back was just an echo, fading a little more with each resurrection. Caspian's chambers were warm, a fire crackling in the hearth despite the summer night. He had made sure of it, knowing Martha would be cold when she came back. She was always cold, after dying. He laid her gently in their bed, pulling heavy furs over her trembling form. Martha didn't thank him, didn't acknowledge him at all. She just stared up at the ceiling with those empty eyes, her breathing shallow and mechanical. Caspian sat on the edge of the bed, unsure if he should touch her, unsure if his presence was a comfort or another burden. The silence stretched between them, heavy with all the things they had stopped saying to each other years ago. Finally, Martha spoke, her voice flat and emotionless. "It gets harder every time, coming back." The words hung in the air like an accusation. "I know," Caspian said softly, though the truth was he didn't know. How could he? He had never died, never felt his soul being ripped from his body, never experienced the terror of resurrection, never carried the weight of 100 deaths in his memory. Martha's eyes slid toward him, and for the first time since her resurrection, he saw a flicker of emotion in them. Anger. "Do you?" Her voice gained strength, sharp edges cutting through the numbness. "Do you know what it feels like to die 100 times? To remember the pain, the fear, the moment your heart stops and everything goes dark? To come back knowing you'll have to do it again in 28 days? Caspian's jaw tightened. "No, I don't." "Then don't say you know." Martha turned her face away from him. "Don't pretend you understand when you're the reason I have to keep dying." The accusation hit him like a blade between the ribs. Caspian stood abruptly, needing distance, needing to breathe. "Martha..." "I'm going to fix this," he said, the same words he had been saying for 8 years. The same empty promise that grew more hollow with each repetition. Martha laughed, a bitter, broken sound that was worse than her screams during death. "You always say that. Right before the next full moon comes and I die again. I mean it." "No, you don't." She finally looked at him, and the rawness in her expression made him want to look away. "If you meant it, you would have found a solution by now. If you really loved me more than your crown, you would have stepped down. Let someone else be Alpha. Let someone else bear this curse." "If I step down, the curse kills you permanently," Caspian said, his voice strained. They had had this argument before, countless times. Breaking the chain means your death becomes the payment. You know this.
"So instead, I die slowly, piece by piece, death by death, until there's nothing left of me?" Martha sat up, the furs falling away. "How is that better? How is watching me deteriorate and lose myself better than letting me die as the person I used to be?" Caspian had no answer for that, because she was right. God help him, she was right. "Get out," Martha said quietly, lying back down and turning away from him. "Please, I need to be alone." Every instinct screamed at him to stay, to hold her, to somehow make this better. But Caspian had learned over the years that sometimes the kindest thing he could do was give her space. He left without another word, closing the door softly behind him. In the hallway, alone, Caspian leaned against the wall and let his carefully maintained composure crack. His hands shook. His breath came in ragged gasps. The weight of what he was doing to her, what he had been doing to her for 8 years, crashed over him like a wave. He loved Martha more than his own life. But she was right about one thing. He loved being Alpha more than he was willing to let her go. And that made him a monster. Inside the chamber, Martha waited until she heard his footsteps fade down the corridor. Only then did she allow the tears to come. They slid silently down her cheeks, soaking into the pillow as her death echoes materialized around the bed. 99 versions of herself, growing more solid with each passing moment. "The worst part isn't dying," she whispered to them, to herself, to the empty room. It's coming back, because every time I do, I lose a little more of who I was. The ghost of her 43rd death sat on the edge of the bed, translucent fingers reaching for Martha's hand, but passing through it. And one day soon, Martha continued, her voice breaking, I'll come back as someone who doesn't remember why she loved him at all. The ghosts said nothing. They just watched her with hollow eyes, their presence a reminder of everything she had already lost. 28 days, that's all she had until it happened again. 28 days until death number 101. And Martha wasn't sure she would survive it. Not because the resurrection would fail, but because she was afraid of what she might become if she did come back. A hollow thing wearing her face, a ghost pretending to be alive, a sacrifice that had forgotten how to be human. 8 years earlier, Martha had been 19 years old when she met Caspian, and she had believed in fairy tales. She remembered that day with painful clarity, every detail etched into her memory like a scar. The territorial meeting between packs, her standing at the back of her small, insignificant pack, while the newly crowned Alpha King addressed the gathered wolves. And then their eyes had met across the clearing. The mate bond had snapped into place instantly, a golden thread weaving itself through her soul and connecting her to him in a way that felt inevitable, eternal, right? Martha had gasped, feeling like every moment of her life had been leading to this one. Caspian had stopped mid-sentence, his alpha gold eyes widening with recognition. For a moment, the powerful king had looked young and uncertain, like a boy seeing something he had never dared hope for. Martha hadn't been able to breathe. This was what every young wolf dreamed of, finding their mate, especially finding a mate like him, powerful and handsome and good. She had thought herself the luckiest girl alive. Fool. The courting had been brief but intense. Caspian had pursued her with a single-minded determination that had been flattering, overwhelming, intoxicating. He had told her she was beautiful, that he had waited his whole life for her, that their bond was a gift from the moon itself. Martha had fallen hopelessly, completely in love. The bonding ceremony had been held 3 weeks after they met, under a full moon in the sacred grove. Martha had worn white, flowers woven through her dark hair, her heart so full of joy she thought it might burst. The pack had surrounded them, as Caspian marked her, completing the mate bond with a bite that sent pleasure and power coursing through her veins. She had marked him in return, their souls entwining, becoming something greater together than they could ever be apart. Martha had thought it was the beginning of forever. She had been wrong. The moment the bond completed, something ancient and dark had stirred to life in her blood. Martha had been standing in Caspian's arms, dizzy with happiness, when the first wave of agony hit her. She remembered collapsing, her legs giving out, Caspian's panicked voice calling her name. She remembered the screaming, though she hadn't realized until later that it was coming from her own throat. Black veins had spread across her skin like poison. Blood had poured from her nose, her mouth. Her heart had seized in her chest, stopping with a finality that was unmistakable. She had died in her mate's arms, still wearing her white bonding dress, blood and flowers falling around them like a twisted parody of romance. Martha remembered Caspian's scream of anguish, remembered the way he had held her body and begged her not to leave him. She remembered hovering above the scene, confused and terrified, watching him cradle her corpse while the pack elders rushed forward. And then she remembered Theron, Caspian's beta, speaking words that would shatter everything. "The curse! It's activated!" Caspian's face, pale and stricken. "What curse? What are you talking about?" The elder had looked grave, sorrowful, but not surprised. "The Alpha bloodline has been protected by dark magic for centuries, my king. When an Alpha's life is threatened, the death transfers to their bonded mate. Your father knew. His father knew. They all knew and chose to complete the bond anyway." Martha remembered the horror on Caspian's face, the way he had pulled her body closer as if he could protect her from something that had already happened. "My mother," he had whispered, "she died of a wasting sickness." That was the curse? The curse manifests differently for each mate. Your mother died slowly, over years, but the magic is the same. As long as you rule as alpha, your mate will bear the cost of that power. How do I stop it? How do I break the curse? The silence that had followed was answer enough. There is no breaking it, my king. The curse is bound to the alpha bloodline itself. Every full moon, for as long as you wear the crown, she will die, and we will resurrect her until what? The elder had looked away. Until her 100th death. No mate has ever survived beyond that. Maris had performed the first resurrection then, cutting her palms and speaking words in a language older than memory. Martha's soul had been pulled back violently, yanked from whatever peaceful darkness she had been floating in and shoved back into her body. She had woken screaming, confused, traumatized, not understanding what had happened or why. Caspian had been there, holding her while she sobbed, his own face wet with tears. "What happened to me?" she had gasped, tasting blood in her mouth, feeling the echo of death still lingering in her bones. Caspian's voice had broken as he answered, "I killed you, and I'm going to kill you 99 more times." Martha had thought he was being dramatic, speaking metaphorically. She had laughed through her tears, shaken but optimistic, certain they would find a way around this together. She had been so naive. The second full moon had come 28 days later, and she had died again. And again. And again. By death number 20, Martha had stopped believing they would find a solution. By death number 50, she had stopped screaming. By death number 75, she had stopped fighting. And now, after 99 deaths, she barely felt like herself anymore. Just a collection of trauma and scars, a breathing corpse going through the motions of living while waiting for the next death. Caspian had promised her, that first night after the curse activated, that he would fix this, that he would search every text, consult every elder, tear apart the very fabric of magic itself, if that's what it took to break the curse. 8 years later, Martha realized the truth. He had never really intended to give up his power, not even for her. Because if he truly loved her the way he claimed, he would have stepped down, given the alpha title to someone else, let her go before the curse destroyed her completely. But he hadn't, and with each passing year, each passing death, the truth became clearer. Caspian loved her, but he loved being Alpha King more, and that knowledge hurt worse than any death the curse could inflict. The morning after death, number 100 dawned gray and cheerless. Martha stood in her private quarters, staring at her reflection in the mirror, trying to recognize the woman looking back at her. She looked the same on the outside, same dark hair, same brown eyes, same petite frame. But there was something fundamentally wrong with the reflection, something that made her skin crawl. It took Martha a moment to realize what was bothering her. She could see them. Behind her reflection, standing in the room like they had every right to be there, were 99 ghostly versions of herself, her death echoes visible now in the waking world, no longer confined to the space between life and death.
"You're not real," Martha whispered to them, gripping the edge of the mirror so hard her knuckles went white. "You're just in my head." The echo of her 22nd death stepped forward, her form translucent but solid enough to cast a shadow. When she spoke, her voice was Martha's voice, but hollow, empty. "He's never going to save you." "Stop it!" Another ghost appeared, this one from Death 56. "He doesn't love you. He loves what you give him. Power, immortality, the perfect sacrifice who never asks him to choose." "That's not true," Martha said, but the words felt weak, even to her own ears. A third ghost, from Death 89, materialized beside the mirror. "Stop fighting. Let go next time. Choose peace over pain." Martha squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her palms against her temples. "Shut up. Shut up. You're not real. You're not—" "Martha? Who are you talking to?" She spun around to find Maris standing in the doorway, concern etched across her face. The healer's eyes swept the room, seeing nothing but empty space and morning light. The death echoes were visible only to Martha. "No one," Martha said quickly, forcing her hands to her sides. "I'm fine." Maris entered the room slowly, like she was approaching a spooked animal. You're not fine. The curse is eating your soul, Martha. I could feel it during the resurrection. You're fracturing. What does that mean? It means you're losing pieces of yourself with every death. Eventually, there won't be enough of you left to come back. You'll either return as something hollow, without memories or personality, or you won't come back at all. Martha sank onto the edge of her bed, suddenly exhausted despite having just woken. Then what do you want me to do? Leave him? Let him die? I want you to choose yourself for once. Maris knelt in front of her, taking Martha's cold hands in her warm ones. You've been dying for him for 8 years. Don't you think you deserve to live? I've forgotten how, Martha admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Behind Maris, Martha's death echoes nodded in agreement, their hollow eyes fixed on her with something that might have been pity. The ghost of her 99th death spoke, her voice cutting through the morning quiet. You know what you have to do. Stop coming back. Stop letting him use you up piece by piece. Choose death over this slow dissolution. Martha wanted to argue, wanted to insist that Caspian wasn't using her, that he loved her, that they were in this together. But as she looked at her 99 ghosts, at the evidence of everything she had already lost, Martha couldn't find the words to defend him. Because maybe they were right. Maybe love wasn't supposed to cost this much. 3 days after death number 100, Martha received an unexpected summons. Rand, the Alpha of the Northern Territories, had requested a meeting. Neutral territory, the message said. Just the two of them. He had information about her curse. Caspian had been suspicious immediately, pacing his study like a caged wolf. It's a trap. He wants something. Then come with me, Martha had suggested, though part of her craved the space from him, the chance to breathe without feeling his guilt and desperation pressing down on her. He specifically requested you come alone. If I show up, it could be seen as an act of aggression. Caspian had stopped pacing, turning to face her. But I don't like this. I'll be fine, Martha had said, surprised to find she meant it. What's the worst that can happen? I die? I've done that 100 times already. The joke hadn't landed. Caspian had flinched like she'd struck him. Now Martha stood at the border between territories, waiting. The neutral ground was a clearing in the forest, marked by ancient standing stones that predated any of the current packs. This was sacred space, where violence was forbidden under pain of death. Rand emerged from the trees exactly on time. He was younger than Martha had expected, perhaps 30, with auburn hair and eyes the color of amber. Handsome, in a wild sort of way, with the dangerous grace all alphas seemed to carry. But there was something different about him, something softer around the edges. Martha, he greeted her with a slight bow, respectful, but not subservient. Thank you for coming. Your message said you had information about my curse. Straight to business. I appreciate that. Rand gestured to a fallen log. May we sit? This isn't a conversation to have standing. Martha hesitated, then nodded. They sat on opposite ends of the log, maintaining careful distance. Rand was quiet for a moment, studying her with those amber eyes. Finally, he spoke. I know about your curse. Everyone knows about it, really. The Alpha King's mate who dies every full moon. Some see it as romantic, a grand sacrifice for love. And you? I see it for what it is. Slow murder dressed up as devotion. Martha's breath caught. No one had ever said it so bluntly before. Rand continued, his voice gentle but firm. You're going to die, Martha. Permanently. Probably within the next few full moons. The 100th death was supposed to be your last, wasn't it? That's what the curse dictates. No mate survives beyond 100. We're looking for a way to break it. No, you're not. Caspian's been looking for a way to keep both you and his crown. There's a difference. Rand leaned forward slightly. There is no breaking the curse, Martha. Believe me, I've researched it extensively. The only way to end it is for Caspian to step down as Alpha. But if he does that, the curse kills you immediately as payment for breaking the chain. Martha's hands clenched in her lap. I know all this. Why did you bring me here? Because there's a third option that no one's mentioned to you. Rand's eyes held hers steadily. Bond with me instead. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. What? Martha breathed. Break your mate bond with Caspian and form one with me. My pack doesn't have a death curse. You would be free. You could live. If I break the bond with Caspian, he dies. Martha's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Rand didn't look away, didn't soften the truth. He would die. But he's dying anyway, isn't he? Slowly, watching you suffer. At least this way, one of you survives. At least this way, his death has meaning. It sets you free. Martha felt like she couldn't breathe. The forest around them seemed to tilt and spin. Why? She managed to ask. Why would you offer this? You don't even know me. Because you deserve better than what he's giving you. Rand's voice was gentle now, almost tender. Because I've watched my own mate suffer under an unfair bond, and I swore I would never let that happen again if I had the power to stop it. And because, Martha, you're dying. Every day you stay bonded to him, you're choosing death over life. I'm offering you a way out. I love him. I know. And he loves you. But love isn't enough when it's killing you. Love should make you stronger, not hollow you out piece by piece. Martha stood abruptly, needing space, needing air. Rand remained seated, giving her room to process. Think about it, he said quietly. You have 26 days until the next full moon. 26 days to decide if you want to die again, or if you want to finally choose yourself. After that, he trailed off, but they both knew what came after that. After that, there might not be enough of Martha left to make any choice at all. Why would you do this? Martha asked again, turning to face him. What do you gain? For the first time, Rand's expression shifted, showing something raw and painful beneath his controlled exterior. A chance to save someone I couldn't save before. And maybe a future that isn't haunted by my past mistakes. There was a story there, Martha realized, a tragedy that shaped this offer into something more complex than simple political maneuvering. I need to think, she said finally. Of course. Rand stood, maintaining his careful distance. But Martha? Don't think too long. Time is something you don't have much of anymore. He melted back into the trees, leaving Martha alone with her death echoes, and a choice that felt impossible. Martha returned to Caspian's territory in a daze, Rand's offer echoing through her mind with every step. She knew she should tell Caspian immediately. Mates didn't keep secrets, didn't entertain offers from rival alphas. But something held her back, kept the words locked in her throat. Maybe it was the part of her that was tired of always putting his feelings first. Maybe it was the 99 deaths that made her wonder if she owed him anything anymore. Or maybe it was just the small, desperate hope that for once, someone was offering her a choice. A way out. A chance to live. Even if it cost her everything. That night, Martha couldn't keep the secret any longer. Caspian was in his study, surrounded by the same ancient texts he'd been poring over for 8 years. Maps and letters covered every surface, evidence of his desperate search for a cure that didn't exist. He looked up when she entered, and Martha saw the hope that flared in his eyes before he could mask it. Did you find anything? He asked, already knowing the answer.
He offered me a way out, Martha said instead of answering. Caspian went very still. What? Rand? He wants me to break our bond and mate with him instead. His pack has no death curse. I would be free. The words came out flat, emotionless, but Martha watched Caspian's face carefully. Watched the way his jaw tightened, how his hands curled into fists on the desk, how his eyes flashed with something dark and possessive. Absolutely not. It wasn't a question asking for your permission, Martha said quietly. He made me an offer. I'm considering it. Caspian stood so fast, his chair toppled backward. He wants to steal you away from me. He wants to save me. The words exploded out of Martha, months and years of repressed emotion finally breaking through. Something you've been failing to do for 8 years. The accusation hung between them like a physical thing. Caspian's face went pale. Martha, you can't possibly be considering this. If you break our bond, you'll die, I know. Martha wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the fire in the hearth. Rand was very clear about that. You'll die, and I'll live. One death instead of infinity. How can you even think about this? Caspian's voice cracked. How can you stand there and calmly discuss murdering me? How can you stand there and pretend you don't kill me every 28 days? Martha fired back, her own voice rising. You want to talk about murder, Caspian? Let's talk about what you've been doing to me for 8 years. I never asked for this curse. I never wanted you to suffer. But you let me. Martha's hands shook. You let me die over and over and over because giving up your crown was too high a price to pay. So don't you dare accuse me of murder when you've been killing me slowly this entire time. The truth of her words seemed to physically stagger him. Caspian gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. You think I don't know that? You think I don't feel the weight of every single death? It's destroying me, Martha. Watching you die, feeling you die through our bond, it's... Then let me go. The plea ripped from her throat, raw and desperate. If watching me suffer is so painful for you, then let me go. Step down. Break the curse. Give me peace. I can't. The confession came out broken. If I step down, the curse kills you permanently. There's no resurrection, no coming back. You would just die. Forever. And I can't lose you like that. So instead, you lose me piece by piece? Martha laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow sound. When do I stop being me, Caspian? When do I become just a shell, a hollow thing that wears my face but doesn't remember why she loved you? I'm going to find a way to fix this. I swear. No! Martha cut him off, her voice sharp as broken glass. No more promises you can't keep. No more empty searching that leads nowhere. We're out of time. Death number 100 was supposed to be my last, remember? The elder said no mate survives beyond that. So what happens at death 101, 102? When does this end? I won't let that happen. You can't stop it. Martha was crying now, 8 years of grief and rage and exhaustion pouring out of her. You can't fix this, and you can't save me, and you can't keep pretending that my love is enough to make up for what you're doing to me. Caspian reached for her, but Martha stepped back, putting distance between them. I love you, she whispered, the words heavy with sorrow. I've loved you through 99 deaths. I've died for you, suffered for you, fractured myself into pieces for you. But I can't do this anymore. I can't keep dying while you hold onto your crown and call it love. What are you saying? Martha met his eyes, and in that moment, she saw the truth reflected back at her. Saw the man she loved warring with the Alpha who wouldn't surrender his power, saw the impossible choice he refused to make. I'm saying I can't keep dying for someone who won't sacrifice anything for me. The words hung between them like a death sentence. If you break our bond, I die, Caspian said quietly, desperately. Martha, please, don't do this. You're asking me to choose your life over mine. You've been asking me to make that choice every single day for 8 years. Martha's voice broke. When do I get to choose myself? She turned to leave, but Caspian's voice stopped her. Is that really what you think? That I won't sacrifice anything for you? Martha looked back at him, at the man she had loved with everything she had, and felt nothing but exhaustion. I think you love me, Caspian. I do. But you love being Alpha King more. And until you can prove otherwise, until you're willing to give up your power to save me, then yes, that's exactly what I think. She left him standing there in his study, surrounded by 8 years of failed research and empty promises. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Martha felt something other than pain or fear or desperation. She felt anger, clean, clarifying anger that burned through the numbness and made her feel almost alive again. Caspian had had 8 years to save her, 8 years to choose her over his crown. Now it was her turn to choose. And Martha was finally ready to choose herself. The days that followed Martha's confrontation with Caspian were the longest of her life. They moved through the halls of his estate like ghosts haunting the same space, never quite occupying it together. Caspian threw himself into his research with renewed desperation, barely sleeping, barely eating, consuming ancient texts like they might hold answers he'd somehow missed in 8 years of searching. Martha watched him destroy himself and felt nothing. Or perhaps she felt too much, and numbness was the only way her fractured soul could cope. Her death echoes grew stronger with each passing day. They no longer waited in shadows or appeared only in mirrors. Now they walked beside her through the corridors, sat across from her at meals, whispered constant commentary on her life, like a chorus of her own despair. 23 days left, the ghost of her 34th death said, as Martha tried to eat breakfast alone in her chambers. He's not going to save you, added the echo from her 61st death. He never was, finished the ghost of her 99th death, the one that looked most like her, the most recent fragment of her soul left behind in darkness. Martha pushed away her untouched food. I know. Then why are you still here? The 99th death tilted her head, an eerily familiar gesture. Rand offered you freedom, life. Why haven't you taken it? Because it means killing Caspian. And staying means killing yourself, slowly, painfully, until there's nothing left but us. The ghost gestured to the 98 other versions of Martha crowded into the room. Is that really better? Martha had no answer for that. A knock at her door interrupted the conversation with her ghosts. Maris entered without waiting for permission, her healer's bag slung over one shoulder and worry etched deep into her face. You're not eating, Maris observed, eyeing the full plate. I'm not hungry. You need your strength. When the next full moon comes... If I survive it, Martha interrupted. Maris set down her bag and came to sit beside Martha on the bed. For a long moment, she just held Martha's hand, offering silent comfort that meant more than any words could. I've been thinking, Maris said finally, about what you told me, about Rand's offer. Martha's grip tightened on her friend's hand. Maris, let me finish. The healer's voice was gentle but firm. I've watched you die 99 times. I've held your cold body, poured my own blood into resurrection rituals, pulled your soul back from wherever it goes when you leave. And every single time, I've watched a little more of you slip away. Tears burned in Martha's eyes. I love Caspian, Maris continued. He's my alpha, my king. But he's also my friend, and I've watched him destroy you both in his refusal to make an impossible choice. She turned to face Martha fully. So I'm going to say something that might make you hate me, but I need to say it anyway. What? Choose yourself, Martha. Even if it costs him everything, even if it costs you his love, choose life over this slow suicide. Maris's own eyes were wet now. Because I can't keep bringing you back. Not anymore. Your soul is too damaged. The next death might be the last one, whether you want it to be or not. The words hit Martha like a physical blow. You're saying you can't resurrect me again? I'm saying I don't know if I'll be able to. The resurrection magic relies on your soul wanting to return, on there being enough of you left to come back to. After 100 deaths... Maris trailed off, but the implication was clear. There might not be enough of Martha left to resurrect. So what do I do? Martha whispered. Rand's offer means Caspian dies. Staying means I die. There's no good choice. Then make the choice that lets you live to face the consequences. Maris squeezed her hand. Make the choice that gives you a future, even if it's one haunted by grief and guilt. Because at least you'll be alive to feel those things. At least you'll have a chance to heal, to rebuild, to become someone whole again. Martha wanted to argue, wanted to find some third option that saved everyone. But her 99 death echoes surrounded them, visible only to her, a reminder of everything she had already lost trying to save a man who wouldn't save himself.
I need to think, Martha said finally. Maris nodded and stood to leave. At the door, she paused. Martha, for what it's worth, I think you've earned the right to be selfish. After everything you've given, everything you've sacrificed, you've earned the right to choose yourself. She left Martha alone with her ghosts and an impossible decision. That night, Martha couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony outside Caspian's chambers, staring up at the waxing moon. 21 days until it was full. 21 days until death number 101. Or 21 days until she made a different choice. Behind her, she heard the door open, felt Caspian's presence before he spoke. "I remember the first time I saw you," he said quietly. Martha didn't turn around. "Caspian, please, just let me say this." He moved to stand beside her at the railing, careful not to touch her, respecting the distance she'd placed between them. "You were standing at the back of your pack during the territorial meeting. You looked so young, so full of hope. And when our eyes met, when the mate bond snapped into place, I thought I'd found everything I'd been searching for." Martha's throat tightened. "I was 24 years old, and I'd just taken the throne after my father's death. I was drowning in responsibility, in expectation, in the weight of a crown I never asked for. And then, there you were. My mate, my other half, the one person in the world who was supposed to be mine." "Where are you going with this?" Martha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to explain why I can't let you go." Caspian's hands gripped the railing until his knuckles turned white. "I'm trying to make you understand that losing you would destroy me in ways the curse never could." "You're losing me anyway," Martha said. "Every death takes a piece of me. Every resurrection brings back less. You're not saving me by keeping me here, Caspian. You're just making my destruction slower. I know." The admission came out broken. "God help me, I know. But I'm a coward, Martha. I'm a selfish, cowardly man who would rather watch you die 1,000 times than face a world without you in it." Finally, Martha turned to look at him. In the moonlight, she could see the toll these 8 years had taken on him, too. The lines around his eyes, the gray at his temples that hadn't been there when they met. The haunted look that never quite left his face. He was suffering, too. She knew that, but his suffering didn't absolve him of the choice he refused to make. "Do you know what the worst part is?" Martha asked. "It's not the dying. It's not even the pain or the fear or the trauma. It's knowing that if you really loved me the way you claim to, you would have let me go years ago. I do love you. You love the idea of me. You love having a mate, having someone who belongs to you, having the perfect sacrifice who never asks you to give anything up." Martha's voice was steady now, certain. "But real love? Real love means putting someone else's well-being above your own wants. Real love means making the hard choice even when it destroys you. And you've never done that, Caspian. Not once in 8 years. That's not fair." "Fair?" Martha laughed, sharp and bitter. "You want to talk about fair? I've died 99 times for you. I've fractured my soul, lost pieces of myself, become a hollow shell of who I used to be. I've given you everything, and you can't even give up a crown you never wanted in the first place. If I step down, you die immediately." Caspian's composure finally cracked, his voice rising. "The curse kills you as payment for breaking the chain. How is that choosing you?" "Because at least then I'd die as myself," Martha shouted back. "At least then I'd die, while I still remember why I loved you, while I still have enough of my soul left to actually feel something. Instead of dying over and over until I'm nothing but a breathing corpse that doesn't even know its own name." The words echoed in the night air, raw and terrible and true. Caspian stared at her, and Martha watched something in him break. He reached for her, and this time she didn't pull away. He wrapped his arms around her and held her tight, his face buried in her hair, his whole body shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her skin. "I'm so sorry. You're right about everything. I'm selfish and cowardly, and I've been killing you slowly because I couldn't face losing you all at once. But I don't know how to let you go, Martha. I don't know how to exist in a world where you're not mine." Martha let herself be held, let herself remember what it felt like when his arms meant safety instead of prison. "Then you need to figure it out, because in 21 days, I'm going to die again. And if I come back, I don't think I'll be me anymore." She pulled away, meeting his eyes. "So, you have 21 days to decide what you love more, me or your crown, because I've already made my choice." "What choice?" Martha's voice was quiet but final. "If I survive death 101, I'm leaving. I'm going to Rand's pack. I'm going to break our bond and choose life over this slow destruction." She watched the words hit him like physical blows, watched the color drain from his face, watched his hands start to shake. "You'd rather kill me than stay with me?" "I'd rather live than die for someone who won't let me go." Martha felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I love you, Caspian. I will probably love you until the day I actually, permanently die. But your love is killing me. And I can't tell the difference anymore between loving you and destroying myself." She walked back inside, leaving him alone on the balcony. Behind her, she heard a sound that made her heart crack. Caspian, the Alpha King, was weeping. The next morning, Martha sent word to Rand. "I need to see you again. Same place. Tomorrow at dawn." His response came within hours. "I'll be there." Martha spent the rest of the day in her chambers, avoiding Caspian, avoiding the pack, avoiding everyone except her death echoes, who had become her only constant companions. "You're really going to do it," the ghost of her 47th death said. It wasn't a question. "I don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice," the 99th death countered. "You're just finally making one that puts yourself first." Martha looked at her 99 ghosts, at the evidence of everything she'd lost. "Will it always be like this? Will you always be here?" "We're pieces of your soul," the 99th death said gently. "Where else would we be? But maybe if you stop dying, we'll start to fade. Maybe if you give yourself permission to live, to heal, we won't be so loud anymore." It was the closest thing to hope Martha had felt in years. That night she packed a small bag. Not much, just essentials. When she left, if she left, she wouldn't need much. Rand had promised her a new life, a fresh start, freedom from the curse that had defined her existence for 8 years. All it would cost was Caspian's life. Martha tried not to think about that, tried not to imagine him feeling their bond break, feeling the life drain out of him as the curse claimed its payment. Tried not to picture him dying alone, betrayed by the one person he'd trusted above all others. But the images came anyway, and they haunted her through the sleepless night. Dawn broke gray and cold. Martha slipped out of the estate before anyone else woke, making her way through familiar forests to the neutral ground where Rand waited. He was already there, standing beside the ancient stones, looking somehow both powerful and gentle in the early morning light. "You came," he said as she approached. "I said I would." They stood in silence for a moment, 2 people on the edge of a decision that would change everything. "Have you decided?" Rand asked finally. Martha took a deep breath. "I need to know something first. Why are you really doing this? What happened with your mate?" Rand's expression shifted, pain flickering across his features before he could mask it. He was quiet for so long that Martha thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with old grief. "Her name was Lydia. We were bonded young, 19 and 20. She was everything to me." He stared out at the forest, seeing something Martha couldn't. "But there was a curse on my bloodline too. Not like yours, but just as cruel. Every time I used my alpha power to its full extent, it drained her life force. Slowly, gradually, but inexorably." Martha's breath caught. "I didn't know at first. The curse was hidden, ancient, tied to magic my ancestors had done before I was born. By the time we figured it out, Lydia had already lost years of her life. She was aging rapidly, her body failing, all because I was using the power that came with being alpha." "What did you do?" "I stepped down." Rand's voice cracked. "I gave the title to my brother, thinking that would break the curse. But it didn't. The damage was already done. Lydia died 3 months later. looking like an old woman at 25 years old. Tears streamed down Martha's face as she listened. I spent years after her death researching curses, studying ancient magic, trying to understand what happened, trying to figure out if there was anything I could have done differently. Rand finally looked at Martha, and I learned something important. Curses like these, they feed on love. They twist it into something poisonous. They make you complicit in destroying the person you love most.
So, when you heard about my curse, I saw you, not just Martha but Lydia too. Another person being slowly destroyed by a curse and an alpha who won't make the hard choice. Rand stepped closer. I couldn't save Lydia. I made my choice too late, and she paid the price. But I can save you, if you'll let me. Martha understood now. This wasn't political maneuvering or a power play. This was a man trying to redeem himself, trying to save someone the way he couldn't save his own mate. If I bond with you, Caspian dies. Yes. And you're okay with that? With his blood on your hands, on mine? Rand's expression was grave. No, I'm not okay with it. Taking another alpha's mate is about as far from okay as you can get. But I'm willing to live with that guilt if it means you get to live at all. Martha closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her like a physical thing. I need more time, she whispered. You don't have much time left, Rand said gently. The full moon comes in 19 days. After that, I know. Martha opened her eyes. I know. I need to be sure. I need to know I've done everything I can before I make a choice that ends his life. Rand nodded slowly. Then go. Do whatever you need to do. But Martha, he waited until she met his eyes. Don't sacrifice yourself on the altar of someone else's inability to let you go. You deserve more than that. You've always deserved more. Martha left him standing there and made her way back through the forest, her mind spinning with impossible choices and no good answers. When she returned to the estate, she found Theron waiting for her in the entrance hall. We need to talk, Caspian's beta said grimly. Theron led Martha to the pack archives, a musty room deep in the estate filled with centuries of records, scrolls, and ancient texts. Caspian doesn't know I'm showing you this, Theron said, pulling out a locked chest from behind rows of books. He made me promise years ago not to tell you, but after last night, after hearing you two argue, he unlocked the chest. You deserve to know the truth. What truth? Theron pulled out a stack of letters, journals, maps covered in notes and markings. This is what Caspian's been doing for 8 years. Every lead he's followed, every expert he's consulted, every dead end he's hit. He spread them across a table, and Martha's eyes widened as she took in the sheer volume of research. Hundreds of letters to witches, scholars, historians, journals filled with notes on ancient magic, maps marked with locations he had traveled to in secret, searching for answers. He wasn't lying about trying to find a cure, Theron said quietly. He's exhausted every option, Martha. Multiple times. He spent a fortune, traveled thousands of miles, consulted everyone from rogue witches to elder shamans, all while keeping up appearances as Alpha King. Martha's hands trembled as she picked up one of the journals, reading Caspian's desperate handwriting. Year 3, month 7. Another failure. The witch in the northern mountains claimed she could sever the curse for a price, but her ritual only made Martha's next death more painful. I've never felt so helpless. Year 5, month 2. Traveled to the ancient temple where the curse was supposedly first cast. Found nothing but ruins and more questions. How do I save her when I can't even understand what's killing her? Year 7, month 11. Met with an elder who survived a similar curse. She told me the only way to break it is through blood sacrifice. My blood for hers. I would do it in a heartbeat, but she made me understand that it wouldn't work that way. The curse requires the Alpha's surrender, not his death. And if I surrender, she dies anyway. Tears blurred Martha's vision as she read page after page of Caspian's desperate, failed attempts to save her. Why didn't he tell me? She whispered. Pride, maybe, or shame. He thought if you knew how many times he'd failed, you'd lose hope entirely. Theron's voice was heavy. But I think you needed to see this. To understand that when he says he's been searching, he means it. He's given everything he can give without giving up the one thing that would kill you anyway. Martha sank into a chair, overwhelmed. This doesn't change anything. The curse is still there. I'm still dying. He still won't step down. No, Theron agreed. But it means his refusal to give up the crown isn't about power or selfishness. It's because every path he's found leads to the same place. Your permanent death. He pulled out one more document, laying it in front of Martha. This is from 6 months ago. A meeting with a seer known for her accuracy. Martha read the seer's words, written in Caspian's careful script. The curse cannot be broken while both Alf and mate live. One must die permanently for the other to be free. If the alpha steps down, the mate dies as payment. If the mate breaks the bond, the alpha dies. If both try to die together, the curse simply chooses the mate as it always has. There is no third option, no clever loophole, only sacrifice. He's known for 6 months that there's no way to save you both, Theron said quietly. And he still refused to make the choice because it meant losing you. Martha looked up at the beta, understanding dawning with terrible clarity. You think he should have let me die months ago, should have stepped down and given me peace. I think love means letting go, Theron said, even when it destroys you. I learned that lesson too late to save my own mate, Martha. I won't make that mistake again, even if it means betraying my alpha's trust. He placed one more item on the table, a small vial filled with dark liquid. What is that? Poison, Theron said bluntly. Fast-acting, painless, enough to kill an alpha in minutes. Martha's heart stopped. You want me to murder him? I want to give you an option that doesn't require you to break the mate bond and live with that guilt for the rest of your life. Theron's eyes were hard but sad. With this, you could end it quickly, mercifully. He would die in his sleep, never knowing, never suffering, and you would be free. I can't, Martha whispered, horror flooding through her. I can't kill him. Then you'll die yourself. In 19 days, you'll die death number 101. And maybe you'll come back, or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll come back as a hollow shell. Or maybe your soul will fracture so completely that what returns won't even be human anymore. Theron's voice was harsh, unforgiving. Is that really better than giving him a quick, painless death? Martha stared at the vial, her mind reeling. Why are you doing this? Because I love my mate, and I watched her deteriorate under a curse until she didn't even recognize me anymore. And when I finally worked up the courage to end her alpha's life and free her, it was too late. She died 3 days before I could act, her mind completely gone, her soul fractured beyond repair. Theron's voice broke. I won't watch another mate suffer that fate, not when I have the power to stop it. He pushed the vial closer to Martha. Take it, hide it, use it or don't use it, that's your choice. But at least you'll have the option. At least you won't be powerless. Martha's hand hovered over the vial, trembling. This was it. The choice she'd been avoiding, laid bare in its cruelest form. Murder the man she loved to save herself. Or die slowly, repeatedly, until there was nothing left of her to save. Think about it, Theron said, standing. You have 19 days, but Martha? He paused at the door. Don't think too long. Time is the one thing you don't have enough of. He left her alone in the archives, surrounded by 8 years of Caspian's failed attempts to save her, and a vial of poison that could end everything in minutes. Martha picked up the vial with shaking hands. It was so small, such a tiny thing to hold so much weight. One choice, one irreversible action, and everything would be over. She tucked the vial into her pocket, feeling its weight like a stone against her heart. Then she gathered up Caspian's journals and letters, needing to understand, needing to see just how hard he'd fought to save them both. Martha spent the next 3 days reading every word Caspian had written. She read about his guilt, his desperation, his repeated failures. She read about the night he traveled 3 weeks to consult a witch who claimed she could help, only to discover it was a trap set by enemies hoping to capture the Alpha King. She read about how he'd nearly died in that trap, and how his only thought was that if he died, no one could resurrect Martha anymore. She read about the small moments too, the times he'd sat beside her sleeping form after a resurrection, stroking her hair, whispering apologies she never heard, the way he'd researched not just cures for the curse, but ways to make her deaths less painful, her resurrections easier. She read about his love, raw and desperate and real. And she read about his cowardice, the entry where he admitted he couldn't step down because losing her would break him. The night he'd written, "I know I'm choosing wrong. I know keeping her alive like this is selfish, but I can't let her go. God forgive me, I can't." The journals painted a picture of a man caught in an impossible situation, making the worst choice repeatedly because all the other choices led to the same place, her death. Martha understood him better now, but understanding didn't change the reality. She was still dying. He was still refusing to let her go, and she still had a vial of poison burning a hole in her pocket.
16 days until the full moon. Martha found Caspian in his study, surrounded by yet more texts, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "I read your journals," she said from the doorway. He looked up sharply, surprise and something like fear crossing his face. "Theron showed you." He thought I deserved to know the truth. Caspian stood, moving around his desk but not approaching her. "I wasn't trying to hide what I was doing. I didn't want you to know how many times I'd failed. Didn't want you to lose hope." "I lost hope around death number 70, Martha said quietly. "Finding out you actually tried doesn't change the outcome. The curse is still there. I'm still dying. You're still choosing your crown over my life. It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple." Martha pulled out the documents Theron had shown her, including the Sears report. "You've known for 6 months that there's no way to save us both. That the only way to end this is for one of us to die. And you chose to keep letting me die repeatedly, rather than make the hard choice once." Caspian's face crumpled. "How could I choose to kill you? How could I step down, knowing it would end your life permanently?" "Because at least then I'd die as myself." Martha's voice rose. "At least then I'd die with my memories, my personality, my soul intact. Instead of dying over and over until there's nothing left of me but a breathing corpse." "I can't do it," Caspian whispered. "I can't be the one who ends your life. Then I'll do it for you." Martha pulled out the vial of poison, setting it on his desk between them. Caspian stared at it, horror dawning in his eyes. "What is that?" "A choice. The only choice that doesn't require me to break our bond, doesn't require you to step down, doesn't force either of us to feel the other die through our connection." Martha's voice was steady, calm, despite the tears streaming down her face. "You drink this. You go to sleep. And you never wake up. It's fast, painless. You won't suffer. And when you're gone, the curse dies with you. I'll be free."
"You want me to commit suicide?" His voice was hollow. "I want you to let me live." Martha met his eyes. "That's all I've ever wanted. For 8 years, all I've wanted is to live. But you won't let me, and I can't do it on my own. So yes, Caspian, I'm asking you to die so I can finally stop dying." Caspian picked up the vial with trembling hands, staring at it like it was a snake. "You really want this? You want me dead?" "I want to stop dying every 28 days. I want to stop fracturing into pieces. I want to remember who I was before the curse turned me into a hollow shell." Martha's voice broke. "And if the only way to get that is for you to die, then yes, I want you dead. I want it so badly it terrifies me." She watched him process her words, watched the realization hit him that she meant every word. "I love you," Caspian said, tears sliding down his face. "I love you more than anything in this world." "I know. That's why this is so painful." Martha stepped closer. "But love isn't enough anymore, Caspian. Love can't save us. Love can't break the curse. All love can do now is give us the courage to end this. Caspian set the vial down carefully, like it might explode. I can't. Martha, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I can't take my own life, even for you. Then you're condemning me to 16 more days of dread, followed by another death and another until there's nothing left of me to save. Martha's voice was flat, empty. And when I'm gone, when I'm just a hollow thing that wears my face but doesn't know your name, I hope you remember that you chose this, that you chose your own fear over my survival. She turned to leave, but Caspian's broken voice stopped her. There has to be another way. There has to be something we haven't tried. There isn't, Martha spun back around, 8 years of frustration and grief exploding out of her. There is no other way. There is no magic cure, no clever loophole, no last-minute salvation. The seer told you, one of us has to die permanently for the other to be free. That's the price. That's always been the price. Then I'll step down, Caspian said desperately. Right now, I'll give the title to Theron. I'll break the alpha chain. I'll die within minutes. Martha's voice was gentle now, tired. You know this. The curse will take my life as payment for breaking the chain. Stepping down doesn't save me. It just kills me faster. Then what do you want me to do? Caspian's voice cracked. Tell me what to do, Martha. Tell me how to save you without losing you. You can't. Martha felt something inside her finally break, a dam giving way after years of holding back a flood. That's what you refuse to accept. You can't save me and keep me both, so you have to choose. My life or your presence in it, my survival or your existence, me living without you or me dying with you. She picked up the vial of poison from his desk, holding it up between them. This is mercy, Caspian. This is love. Real love that sacrifices everything. Love that lets go even when it destroys you. Martha's voice was barely a whisper now. But if you can't do it, if you can't make that choice, then I have to make it for you. What does that mean? Martha met his eyes, and in that moment, Caspian saw his answer. No, Martha, don't. In 16 days, if I survive the next death, I'm going to Ranspack. I'm going to break our mate bond, and I'm going to let you die feeling our connection sever. Martha's voice was steady, final. That's the choice I'm making. That's how much I want to live. She left him standing there, the vial of poison still sitting on his desk, a mercy he was too afraid to take.
14 days until the full moon. Martha had stopped sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Caspian's face when she'd told him her decision. The horror, the betrayal, the desperate love that refused to let her go, even as it killed them both. Her death echoes were constant now, 99 versions of herself crowding every room, whispering constant reminders of what she'd lost, what she was about to do. You're really going to kill him, the ghost of her 50-second death said. I'm choosing to live. If that kills him, that's the curse's fault, not mine. Keep telling yourself that, the 99th death said softly. Maybe, eventually, you'll believe it. Maris found her standing on a balcony, staring at the waning moon. He's not eating, the healer said without preamble. He's not sleeping. He's destroying himself, Martha. I know. He loves you. I know that too. Maris was quiet for a long moment. Do you still love him? Martha considered the question. Really considered it. Did she still love Caspian? After 8 years of dying for him? After watching him refuse to save her? After everything they'd been through? Yes, she admitted. I love him so much it's destroying me. That's the problem. My love for him has become indistinguishable from my own destruction, and I can't do it anymore. So you'll break the bond and let him die? Yes. That will destroy you too. Just differently. I know. Martha turned to face her friend. But at least I'll be alive to be destroyed. At least I'll have a future, even if it's one full of grief and guilt. That's more than I have now." Maris pulled her into a hug, and Martha let herself be held, let herself cry against her friend's shoulder. "I wish there was another way," Maris whispered. "So do I. But wishes don't break curses." 10 days until the full moon. Caspian finally broke. Martha was in her chambers when he appeared, looking like he hadn't slept in days, his eyes wild with desperation and something that might have been madness. "I'll do it," he said. Martha looked up from the book she wasn't actually reading. "Do what?" "I'll step down, right now. I'll renounce my title, give everything to Theron, break the alpha chain." He moved toward her, falling to his knees in front of her chair. "I'll do whatever it takes, Martha. Just don't leave me. Don't break our bond, please." Martha's heart clenched. "Caspian, if you step down..." "I know. The curse will kill you as payment. I know." His hands gripped hers desperately. "But at least then you'd die instantly, painlessly. Not this slow fracturing, not this endless cycle of death and resurrection. Just one moment and it's over. You'd be at peace." Martha stared at him, shocked. "You're willing to give up your throne to give me a quick death?" "I'm willing to give up everything." Caspian's voice broke. "I've spent 8 years refusing to make the hard choice because I was terrified of losing you. But you're right. I've been losing you all along. So if I can't save you, if there's truly no way to break this curse and keep you alive, then at least I can give you peace. At least I can make sure your last moments are spent as yourself, with your soul intact, instead of waiting until there's nothing left of you to say goodbye to." Martha felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This was what she'd been begging him to do for years. To choose her peace over his comfort, her dignity over his desperate need to keep her. But now that he was finally offering it, all she felt was grief. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why, after 8 years, after 99 deaths, are you finally willing to let me go?" Caspian's hands tightened on hers. "Because I finally understand that keeping you alive like this isn't love. It's torture. It's selfish cowardice dressed up as devotion." He looked up at her, and Martha saw something new in his eyes. Clarity. Terrible, heartbreaking clarity. "If I step down," he continued, "you die instantly. But you die as Martha, as the woman I fell in love with. And maybe that's the greatest act of love I can give you now. Letting you go before the curse takes everything that makes you, you." Martha cupped his face in her hands, feeling the tears streaming down both their cheeks. "I don't want to die, Caspian. Even fast, even painless. I don't want to die. I want to live." "I know," he whispered, "but the curse won't let you. Not really. Not unless I die first." The vial of poison sat on Martha's nightstand, where it had lived for the past week. Both of them looked at it now. "Take it," Martha said softly. "Take the poison. Go to sleep. And when you're gone, I'll finally be free. We'll both be free." Caspian stood slowly, moving to the nightstand. He picked up the vial, turning it over in his hands. "If I do this," he said quietly, "promise me something. Anything. Don't let me become a villain in your story. Don't let our love become something you're ashamed of." He looked at her, and the raw vulnerability in his expression made Martha's heart break all over again. "Remember that I tried, that I searched and failed and tried again. Remember that I loved you enough to finally let you go, even though it cost me everything." "I promise," Martha whispered. Caspian uncorked the vial, staring at the dark liquid inside. "Do you think there's an afterlife?" he asked. "I don't know. I've died 99 times and never found one." He laughed, a broken sound. "Then maybe I'll be the first. Maybe I'll find whatever comes after and wait for you there. However many years it takes." Martha stood, moving to him. She took his face in her hands and kissed him, soft and gentle, and full of 8 years of love and loss. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his lips. "I'm so sorry it came to this." "I'm not," Caspian said, and Martha was shocked to realize he meant it. Because for 8 years, I got to love you. And even with everything that's happened, even with all the pain and death and suffering, I wouldn't trade those years for anything. He raised the vial to his lips, and Martha watched, tears streaming down her face, as the man she loved chose to die so she could finally live. But at the last second, Caspian's hand trembled. He lowered the vial, shaking his head. I can't. God help me, I can't do it. The admission hung between them like a death sentence. Martha felt something inside her shatter completely. Not break. She'd been breaking for 8 years. This was different. This was the final, irreversible destruction of the last piece of hope she'd been clinging to. Then there's nothing left to say, she said quietly. She walked to her closet and pulled out the bag she'd packed days ago. Everything she needed, everything that mattered, compressed into one small pack. What are you doing? Caspian's voice was panicked. Leaving, right now. I'm not waiting for the full moon. I'm not waiting to die one more time. I'm done, Caspian. Martha slung the pack over her shoulder. I'm going to Rand's pack. Tonight. And tomorrow when the sun rises, I'm going to break our bond. Martha, wait. No. The word came out sharp, final. I've waited 8 years. I've died 99 times. I've given you every chance to save me, to choose me, to let me go. And you can't do any of those things, so I'm making the choice for both of us. She moved toward the door, but Caspian blocked her path.
You can't do this. If you break the bond, you'll die. I know. You've made sure I know exactly what it will cost. Martha met his eyes. But here's what you don't seem to understand. I'm already dying. Every day I stay here, every death I endure, I'm losing more of myself. So yes, breaking our bond will kill you. But staying in it is killing me, and I finally care more about my survival than yours. The words were cruel, intentionally so. Martha watched them hit him like physical blows. You don't mean that, Caspian whispered. I do. With everything I have left, I mean it. Martha pushed past him toward the door. Goodbye, Caspian. I hope you find someone who loves you enough to keep dying for you. Because I don't anymore. It was a lie. The worst lie she'd ever told. She loved him so much it was destroying her, which was exactly why she had to leave. Martha made it 3 steps into the hallway before Caspian's voice stopped her one last time. Don't do this, please. I'll step down right now. I'll renounce the title, accept your death as payment. Just don't leave me like this. Martha turned back to look at him, standing in the doorway of what had been their shared chambers, looking broken and desperate and lost. It's too late for that, she said softly. You had 8 years to make that choice. Now I'm making mine. She walked away, and this time he didn't follow. Behind her, she heard a sound that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Caspian, the Alpha King, falling to his knees and screaming her name like a prayer that would never be answered. Martha ran. She ran through the halls of the estate, past startled pack members, past guards who called after her but didn't dare stop their alpha's mate. She ran through the gates and into the forest beyond, her bag bouncing against her back, her breath coming in ragged gasps that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Behind her, she felt Caspian through the mate bond, felt his anguish, his desperation, his soul-deep terror at losing her. The golden thread that connected them pulled taut, straining as she put distance between them. It would be so easy to turn back, to return to him, to accept another death in 10 days, and another after that, until there was nothing left of her but echoes and emptiness. So easy, and so impossible. Martha's death echoes ran with her, 99 versions of herself, keeping pace through the darkening forest. You're really doing it? The ghost of her 73rd death said, sounding almost impressed. Finally choosing yourself, added the 49th death. The 99th death ran beside her, solid enough that Martha could almost feel her presence. It's going to hurt. When you break the bond, it's going to feel like dying all over again. I know, Martha gasped, but at least it will be the last time. She ran until her legs burned, until the estate was miles behind her, until she reached the neutral territory where Rand had promised to wait for her signal. He was there, standing in the moonlight like he'd known she would come. "You're early," he said as she stumbled into the clearing. "I couldn't wait anymore." Martha dropped her bag, bending over to catch her breath. "I need to do this now, tonight, before I lose my nerve." Rand studied her carefully. "Breaking a mate bond isn't something to do lightly, Martha. Once it's done, it can't be undone. Caspian will die within hours. Are you absolutely certain?" "No," Martha admitted, straightening up. "I'm not certain at all, but I'm out of options and out of time, and this is the only choice that lets me live. So, yes, I'm ready." "Then we need to prepare." Rand gestured to the clearing. "The ritual requires a full circle, sacred herbs, and a blood offering from both parties. It will take a few hours to set up properly." "A few hours?" Martha felt panic rising in her chest. "Caspian will come looking for me. He'll figure out where I am. Let him come." Rand's voice was calm, steady. "This is neutral ground. He can't stop us here without violating ancient laws. And if he tries," Rand's eyes flashed amber, "I'll protect you. That's my promise." Martha nodded, trying to steady her breathing. A few hours. She just had to hold on for a few hours, and then it would all be over. Then she would be free, and Caspian would be dead. The thought hit her like a physical blow, and Martha had to sit down suddenly, her legs refusing to hold her. "Having second thoughts?" Rand asked gently. "Having all the thoughts," Martha whispered. "Every thought possible, about what I'm doing, what it means, what it will cost." She looked up at him. "How did you bear it? The guilt of not saving your mate in time?" Rand was quiet for a long moment before answering. "I didn't for a long time. I drank, I fought, I did everything I could to not feel it. But eventually I realized something." He sat down beside her. "Guilt is just love with nowhere to go. And rather than let it destroy me, I decided to channel it into something that mattered, into saving someone I could still save. Me. You," he agreed. "So no, I haven't really borne it. I've just redirected it. And maybe if I can save you, Lydia's death won't feel quite so meaningless." Martha understood. They were both broken people trying to salvage something from their tragedies. It wasn't love, not yet, maybe not ever, but it was understanding, and right now, that felt like enough. "Thank you," she said softly, "for giving me this choice. Thank you for being brave enough to make it." They sat in silence as Rand began preparing the ritual space, drawing symbols in the earth, placing candles at cardinal points, gathering herbs that smelled of sage and sorrow. And with each passing minute, Martha felt Caspian getting closer. He was coming for her. She could feel it through the bond, feel his desperate determination, his refusal to let her go. Part of her, a large part, wanted him to reach her in time, wanted him to stop her, to take this impossible choice out of her hands. But the rest of her, the part that remembered 100 deaths, that carried 99 ghosts as constant companions, that part knew this was the only way. 2 hours later, the ritual was ready. Rand had created a perfect circle in the clearing, marked with symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The air itself felt charged, heavy with ancient magic and impending change. "Once we begin," Rand explained, "the process takes about 30 minutes. You'll feel the bond weakening, fraying, eventually breaking. It will be painful. Some say it's like having your soul ripped in half. But you'll survive. And Caspian?" Rand's expression was grave. "He'll feel it too. Every moment of the bond breaking, he'll feel it. And when it finally severs completely, his heart will stop. The curse will take him as its final payment." Martha wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the summer night. "Will he suffer?" "Probably." Rand didn't sugarcoat it. The breaking of a mate bond isn't meant to happen. It goes against every natural law, so yes, he'll suffer, but it will be over relatively quickly, faster than your 100 deaths. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. "Martha?" The voice came from the edge of the clearing, and Martha's heart stopped. Caspian stood at the boundary of the ritual space, looking haggard and wild. Theron was with him, along with several pack members, but Caspian's eyes were only for Martha. "Don't do this," he said, his voice breaking. "Please, we can find another way." "There is no other way," Martha said, forcing strength into her voice she didn't feel. "You know that. The seer told you. One of us has to die." "Then let it be me." Caspian pulled something from his pocket, and Martha's breath caught. The vial of poison. "I'll take it right now," Caspian said, holding it up. "Right here, in front of everyone. You won't have to break the bond, won't have to carry that guilt. I'll just go to sleep, and you'll be free." Martha felt tears streaming down her face. "You said you couldn't do it. You said you were too afraid." "I was." Caspian's hands trembled around the vial. "But I'm more afraid of losing you like this, of having you hate me for the rest of your life for not being strong enough to let you go. So I'm making the choice, Martha. Right now, I'm choosing you." He uncorked the vial. "Wait!" Martha lurched forward, but Rand caught her arm. "Don't," the rival Alpha warned. "This is his choice to make." But Martha couldn't watch, couldn't stand there while Caspian poisoned himself, couldn't let him die thinking she hated him. "I don't hate you," she called out, the words torn from her throat. "I could never hate you. I love you so much it's killing me, which is why I have to do this. Don't you see? My love for you has become poison. It's destroying us both." Caspian lowered the vial slightly. "Then let me be the one who's destroyed. Let me make this sacrifice for you, the way you've sacrificed for me 100 times. "It's too late for that." Martha's voice broke. "I'm already broken, Caspian, already fractured into pieces. Your death won't heal me. It will just add more guilt, more grief, more weight to carry. But at least I'll be alive to carry it. So you'd rather I die feeling you sever our bond? Rather I spend my last moments feeling you choose someone else?" Pain laced every word.
I'm not choosing Rand. I'm choosing life. There's a difference. Rand spoke up then, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Alpha King, you're standing on neutral ground. If you try to stop this ritual by force, you'll violate ancient laws and start a war. Is that really what you want?" Caspian's eyes never left Martha. "I want my mate to stay alive. I want to save her. I want to fix this." "You can't," Martha said gently. "You never could. The curse was always bigger than both of us. And I'm tired, Caspian. I'm so tired of dying, of fighting, of hoping for a miracle that's never coming. So please, if you ever loved me, let me go." For a long moment, Caspian just stood there, the vial of poison in one hand, his other hand pressed against his chest where the mate bond lived. Then he raised the vial to his lips. "If I do this," he said, "promise me you'll remember. Promise me you'll remember that I loved you enough to die for you." "I promise," Martha whispered. Caspian tipped his head back and drank. The poison worked fast. Within seconds, Caspian's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, the empty vial falling from his fingers. His pack members rushed forward, but Theron held them back. "It's done," the beta said quietly. "Let him have this dignity." Martha broke free from Rand's grip and ran to Caspian, falling to her knees beside him. She caught him as he fell forward, cradling him in her arms. "You idiot!" she sobbed, holding him tight. "You beautiful, selfless idiot." Caspian's eyes were already glazing over, his breathing shallow and labored, but he managed a small smile. "I finally made the right choice. Only took me 8 years. Don't talk. Save your strength." "For what?" He laughed weakly. "I'm dying, Martha. Finally. After 8 years of watching you die, I finally get to know what it feels like." "Does it hurt?" "No," he lied, and Martha could feel through their bond that it hurt terribly. The poison was burning through him like acid, shutting down his organs one by one. "It's peaceful, like going to sleep." Martha pressed her forehead against his, tears falling onto his face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry it came to this. Don't be. Caspian's hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch already growing cold. You gave me 8 years I didn't deserve. 8 years of loving you, of being loved by you. That's more than most people get in a lifetime. Through their bond, Martha felt his heart beginning to slow, felt his life force fading like a candle in wind. What happens now? Caspian whispered. After I'm gone? I live, Martha said, though the words felt like ash in her mouth. I heal. I try to remember how to be whole again. Good. His breathing was getting more labored now, each breath a struggle. That's good, that's all I wanted. For you to live. Martha felt the exact moment his heart stopped beating. The mate bond didn't break. It was severed. Cut clean through like a blade through silk. The golden thread that had connected them for 8 years simply ceased to exist. The pain was indescribable. Martha screamed, clutching Caspian's body as agony exploded through her chest. It felt like her soul was being ripped in half, like every death she'd ever experienced compressed into one moment of pure, excruciating loss. Her death echoes materialized around her, all 99 of them, and for the first time, they weren't hollow, or bitter, or angry. They were grieving. He's gone, the 99th death whispered. We're free, said the 47th death. But at what cost? Asked the 22nd death. Martha couldn't answer. She just held Caspian's body and wept, feeling the curse lift from her shoulders like chains falling away. The dark magic that had bound her to death after death after death simply dissolved. Without an alpha to feed it, without a mate to sacrifice, the curse had nothing left to sustain it. She was free, and the cost of that freedom lay dead in her arms. They burned Caspian's body at dawn. It was traditional for alphas to be cremated, their ashes scattered in the territories they'd protected. Martha watched the flames consume him, feeling hollow and empty, and more alive than she'd been in 8 years. The curse was truly gone. She could feel it, or rather, she could feel its absence. The constant weight of impending death, the knowledge that another full moon meant another dying, all of it had vanished with Caspian's last breath. Theron approached as the flames died down, his expression unreadable. He made me promise something, the beta said, before he took the poison. He made me promise to tell you that he forgives you for choosing life over him. He said he understood, and he forgives you. Martha's composure cracked. She'd been holding herself together through sheer force of will, but Theron's words broke something inside her. I don't want his forgiveness, she sobbed. I want him back. I want 8 years back. I want to go back to the beginning and make different choices. We all do, Theron said gently. But we can't. All we can do is move forward and try to honor what he gave us. What did he give me? A life full of guilt and grief? He gave you a future. Theron placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't waste it. Rand was waiting at the edge of the clearing, keeping his distance, respecting her grief. When Martha finally approached him, he studied her carefully. Are you ready? He asked. Ready for what? To come to my territory, to begin the bonding process with me. He said it gently, without pressure. That was the agreement. Martha stared at him, and for the first time, she really understood what she'd agreed to. Breaking the bond with Caspian was only the first step. To truly be free of the curse, to ensure it couldn't somehow reattach to her, she needed to bond with another alpha. She needed to bond with Rand. I can't, she whispered. Not yet. I just watched my mate die. I can't just replace him. I'm not asking you to replace him. Rand's voice was patient, understanding. I'm asking you to survive. The bond doesn't have to mean love, Martha. It can just mean protection, safety, a future. Martha looked back at the ashes that had been Caspian, then at her own hands, free of the black veins that had marked every approaching death. She was free. But freedom felt an awful lot like drowning. "Give me time," she said finally. "A few weeks. A month. Let me grieve him before I move on." Rand nodded. "Take whatever time you need. My offer stands. When you're ready, come find me." He left, and Martha was alone with Theron and the remnants of Caspian's pack. "What will you do now?" Theron asked. Martha looked at her death echoes, still visible around her. 99 versions of herself, ghosts of who she'd been, fragments of a soul slowly reassembling. "I'm going to learn how to live," she said quietly. "For the first time in 8 years, I'm going to figure out who Martha is when she's not dying, when she's not defined by sacrifice or suffering or love that costs too much. And then, Martha took a deep breath, feeling air fill her lungs without the shadow of death hanging over her. "And then I'll figure out what comes next." 3 weeks later, Martha stood at the border between territories, a bag over her shoulder, her death echoes walking beside her. They'd started to fade. Slowly, gradually, the 99 ghosts of herself were becoming more translucent, their voices quieter. The healer, Maris, had told her it was a good sign, that her soul was healing, reintegrating the pieces she'd lost. But they weren't gone entirely. Martha suspected they never would be. The deaths she'd endured had fundamentally changed her, marked her in ways that couldn't be erased. She'd spent the last 3 weeks in isolation, processing her grief, her guilt, her complicated feelings about being alive. She'd cried until she had no tears left. She'd screamed at the sky. She'd written letters to Caspian that she burned without reading back. And slowly, painfully, she'd begun to heal. Not healed, not whole, but healing. Learning to live with the weight of what she'd done, what she'd survived, what she'd lost. Now she stood at a crossroads. Behind her, Caspian's territory, full of memories and ghosts and a pack that looked at her with complicated emotions. Gratitude that she'd freed their alpha from his guilt. Resentment that her freedom cost his life. Ahead, Rand's territory, offering safety, protection, a chance to start over. Or she could go somewhere else entirely. Find a small pack, a quiet place, and build a life that was entirely her own. The choice was hers. For the first time in 8 years, the choice was truly, completely hers. Martha closed her eyes and let herself feel the sun on her face, warm and real. Feel the breeze carrying the scent of pine and possibility. Feel her own heartbeat, steady and strong, no curse waiting to stop it. She was alive. Caspian was dead. And somehow she had to find a way to live with both those truths. "Where are we going?" the ghost of her 99th death asked softly. Martha opened her eyes and started walking. Not toward Rand's territory, not back to Caspian's, but forward, into unknown territory, into uncertainty, into a future she would build for herself. "I don't know," she admitted to her ghosts, "but wherever it is, I'll be alive to see it. And that's enough for now."
5 years later, the forest clearing was exactly as Martha remembered it. She'd returned to the neutral ground where so much had changed, where Caspian had taken poison in his hand and chosen to die so she could live. The place where her old life had ended and her new one had begun. 5 years. 5 years of learning how to be alive. 5 years of therapy with a pack healer who specialized in trauma. 5 years of slowly, painfully reassembling herself from the fragments the curse had left behind. Her death echoes had faded to almost nothing now. Occasionally she'd catch a glimpse of one in her peripheral vision, or hear a whisper that might have been her own voice, or might have been a ghost. But mostly she was alone in her own head now, mostly whole. She'd never bonded with Rand. In the end, she'd realized she didn't need another alpha to protect her, didn't need another bond to define her. She'd spent 8 years being Caspian's mate, and she needed time to just be Martha, So she'd found a small pack on the edge of civilized territory, one that needed a healer's assistant. She'd learned medicine from Maris before she left, learned how to resurrect others the way she'd been resurrected 100 times, learned how to save people instead of always needing to be saved. It had been good work, quiet work, the kind of life that felt revolutionary after 8 years of drama and death and impossible choices. She'd even dated occasionally. Nothing serious, nothing that led to bonding, but enough to remind her that she was capable of connection, of affection, of wanting to be close to someone without destroying herself in the process. She was healing, slowly, but healing. Now she stood in the clearing where Caspian had died, carrying something she'd been working on for the past year. A memorial stone. She'd carved it herself, spent months shaping the granite, engraving words that felt inadequate but necessary. Here fell Caspian, Alpha King, who loved too much and chose too late. But chose nonetheless, may he find in death the peace he couldn't give in life. Martha placed the stone in the center of the clearing, right where he'd fallen. It wasn't much, but it was something, a marker, an acknowledgement, a way of saying that his death hadn't been meaningless, that his sacrifice had mattered. "I forgave you," Martha said to the empty air, to the ghost of a man who couldn't hear her. "I don't know when it happened exactly, somewhere between year 3 and year 4 of my new life. I woke up one morning and realized I wasn't angry anymore, wasn't bitter, just sad, and grateful, and sorry for us both." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying no answers. "You were right to make me promise I'd remember you tried," Martha continued. "Because I do. I remember all of it now, not just the deaths, but the moments in between, the times you held me while I cried, the way you'd stay up all night researching after each resurrection, desperately searching for answers, the way you loved me, even though the love became poison." She knelt beside the stone, tracing the letters with her fingers. "I'm alive because you died. I'm whole because you broke. And I carry that with me every single day. Not as a burden anymore, but as a reminder. That love sometimes means letting go. That sacrifice has meaning. That even broken, painful, impossible love matters." Martha stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "I don't know if there's an afterlife," she said. "I died 100 times and never found one. But if there is, if you're somewhere out there waiting, I hope you're at peace. I hope you've forgiven yourself. And I hope you know that I'm okay. Not happy, maybe not ever completely whole again, but okay. Living. Healing. Becoming someone new." She turned to leave, then paused. "Thank you," she whispered, "for finally choosing me, for finally letting me go. It came too late, and it cost too much, but thank you." Martha walked away from the clearing, from the memorial, from the ghost of who she'd been, when loving him was the same as dying. She walked toward her new life, carrying his memory without being crushed by it. And for the first time in 13 years, 8 years of dying, 5 years of healing, Martha felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Not the desperate, painful hope of finding a cure. Not the bitter hope that someone else would save her, but the quiet, steady hope that came from saving herself. The hope of a woman who had died 100 times and learned finally how to live. Epilogue, 10 years later. Martha stood in her healing hut, grinding herbs for a poultice when she felt it. A familiar pull, a whisper of recognition that made her hands still over her work. She looked up to find a young woman standing in her doorway. 20 years old, maybe 21, with haunted eyes and black veins creeping up her arms. "Are you the healer?" the girl asked. "The one who survived the death curse?" Martha's breath caught. She'd heard rumors over the years of other mates suffering similar fates, other alphas whose bloodlines carried dark magic that fed on love and sacrifice. But this was the first time one had found her. "I am," Martha said gently. "What's your name?" "Elena." The girl stepped inside, and Martha could see the telltale signs, the exhaustion, the hollow look, the way she held herself like someone who died before and knew she'd die again. "How many times?" Martha asked, though she already knew the answer would be too many. 37. Elena's voice broke. And my mate, he keeps saying he'll find a cure, that he'll fix this, but he won't let me go, and I don't know how much longer I can do this. Martha set down her herbs and moved around the table to take Elena's hands in hers. I understand, she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. I understand exactly what you're feeling, and I'm going to tell you something that might save your life. What? Martha met the young woman's eyes, seeing her own past reflected there, seeing 100 deaths and the slow dissolution of self. You don't have to keep dying for someone who won't sacrifice for you. You don't have to stay until there's nothing left of you but echoes and emptiness. Martha's voice was firm, certain, full of hard-won wisdom. There are choices, hard choices, terrible choices, choices that will haunt you for the rest of your life. But they're there, and you deserve to know about them. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I love him. I know, I loved mine too. Loved him through 99 deaths. Loved him even as loving him destroyed me. Martha squeezed the girl's hands. But here's what I learned. Love isn't supposed to cost your soul. Real love, healthy love, doesn't demand you die over and over to prove your devotion. And if he won't let you go, if he won't make the hard choice to save you, then you have to make it for yourself. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are, Martha said with certainty. You're here, aren't you? After 37 deaths, you're still fighting, still looking for answers, still hoping. That's strength, that's survival, and I'm going to help you use it. Over the next hours, Martha told Elena everything. The curse, the choices, the impossible decisions. She told her about Caspian, about the poison, about Rand's offer. She told her about the cost of freedom and the price of staying. She didn't tell Elena what to do. That was a choice each person had to make for themselves. But she gave her the information, the options, the understanding that she wasn't alone in this nightmare. When Elena left, Martha stood in her doorway watching the young woman walk away, seeing herself 13 years ago, scared and broken and desperately seeking a way out. She hoped Elena would make a different choice, a better choice, one that didn't cost quite so much. But if she didn't, if Elena ended up walking the same painful path Martha had walked, at least she would know she wasn't alone, that someone had survived, that survival was possible, even after 100 deaths. That night, Martha dreamed of Caspian for the first time in years. He looked the way he had the day they met, young and hopeful and full of love that hadn't yet turned toxic. You're helping them, he said, and he sounded proud. Someone has to. Martha looked at the dream version of the man she'd loved. Someone has to tell them they don't have to die forever. I'm sorry, Caspian said, for what I put you through, for not being strong enough to let you go sooner. I know, and she did. Had known for years now. I'm sorry too, for hating you in those final years, for making you feel like a monster when you were just scared. We were both scared. We were, Martha agreed, and we both made terrible choices because of it. Dream Caspian smiled, sad and sweet. But you survived. You made it out. You're helping others make it out too. Does that make it worth it? Does that make all the pain and death and suffering mean something?
He considered the question. I don't know, but it means you're alive. And that's what I wanted. More than anything, that's what I wanted. Martha felt tears on her cheeks. I miss you. Even after all these years, even knowing what we did to each other. I miss you. I miss you too. Caspian began to fade, becoming translucent like her death echoes had been. But you're where you're supposed to be now, helping people, healing, living. Will I see you again? Martha asked. In whatever comes after? I hope so, Caspian said as he disappeared. I've been waiting. However long it takes, I'll keep waiting. Martha woke with tears on her face and a strange sense of peace in her heart. She'd spent 10 years learning to live without him. 10 years healing from what they'd done to each other. 10 years becoming someone new. But she'd never stopped loving him. The difference now was that her love for him didn't define her, didn't destroy her, didn't demand she sacrifice herself to prove it. She loved him the way you love a scar, as evidence of survival, as a mark of what you'd endured, as a part of your story without being the whole story. And somehow, that felt like healing. Martha got out of bed and walked to her window, looking out at the forest bathed in moonlight. Somewhere out there, Elena was making her choice. Living or dying, staying or going, choosing herself or choosing sacrifice. Martha sent up a quiet prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Let her choose life. Let her choose herself. Let her survive long enough to heal. And then, because she could now, because she was finally free to do so, Martha chose herself too. Chose another day of living, another day of healing, another day of being Martha. Not Caspian's mate, not a sacrifice, not a victim of dark magic. Just Martha. Alive, scarred, healing, and finally free. The end. Martha died 100 times so he could stay Alpha. Then she died one final death. The death of who she'd been, so she could finally live. Some would call that tragedy. She called it survival. And in the end, survival was the greatest act of love she could give herself.
You made it to the very end of our second story here on the channel. Thank you for staying until the final breath of Martha's journey. Watching her transition from a sacrifice into a survivor who finally chose herself was a heavy path to walk, and I'm so glad we walked it together. Our vision. We started this channel because we believe these stories are more than just words. They are a shared experience. Our vision is to build a place where we can dive into these high-stakes worlds of ancient secrets and impossible choices, exploring the dark corners of love and loyalty as a family. We're not just narrating for you, we're experiencing every heartbeat and every heartbreak right alongside you. When to find us? To make sure you never miss a moment of the drama, we post new chapters and stories every Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. A note to the family. If this story moved you, or if you've ever felt like you had to choose between your own soul and someone else's crown, let's talk about it in the comments. We read every single one. Before you go, make sure you're officially part of the pack by hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications. We'll see you this coming Sunday for a brand new journey into the wild. Until then, stay safe and remember, sometimes the most courageous act is simply choosing to live.